Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joe Culver, the Executive Director of the New York Mortgage Bankers Association. Definitely welcoming all of you on behalf of our entire board, our Education Committee co-chairs, Elizabeth Cheney and Bill Kennedy, who many of you know. We thank you for joining us today, and also a big thanks, who you're going to hear from here in a couple of minutes, our partners over at Essent Guaranty Inc., and our absolute dynamic speaker, Ron Vainberg, who's joining us again for this special presentation. So a couple housekeeping items, which we always want to make sure you're aware of. All microphones today are muted. So if you do experience any kind of technical difficulties, if you wouldn't mind, just use the chat button as you see down at the bottom of your screen. You can type in information there. We'll monitor that, and hopefully it's something that we can help or adjust on our side. We also want to make sure that you know that in terms of any questions that you have, as Ron is presenting his information throughout the course of the next hour here, you can certainly put items down in the chat box as well. We will monitor that, and then we'll also have a little bit of a wrap up at the end where Ron can answer some additional questions that may come forth at that stage. And then we also, at the end of the session, just to give you a reminder now, within a day or two, we are able to take this and post it out. This information will be available for all of you to view once again out on our YouTube page. So we'll talk about that as we wrap up here later in the session. We also want to make sure everybody is aware and you pay attention to the Mortgage Action Alliance. That's something that we are a part of. There's now over 1,800 of you throughout New York State that are part of the Mortgage Action Alliance, and over 80,000 members now nationally across the United States. So, you know, that's a free, easy app. It helps us when we are pushing on legislation, either something that we may be supporting or opposing, and we reach out to all of you for some quick action to some of the legislators that may be responsible for that. So without ado here, let's keep moving forward. Again, I'm going to turn it over right now to our friend and partner, Casey Pucco with Essent. Casey, if you wouldn't mind taking it away and spend a couple minutes here talking about both your company and what you have going on, and then also please introduce our esteemed speaker.
Yes, just a quick hello to everyone. I wanted to thank the New York MBA and everyone behind the scenes that make this possible. You've done a really tremendous job lately, keeping us educated and up to speed with everything going on. I'd like to thank Ron and his team as well. And I believe everyone should know me from Essent Mortgage Insurance, and we, you know, love to help out and sponsor as much as possible. And, you know, you guys are doing a great thing. So thank you for having us. And Ron, take it away.
Casey, thank you so much for making this possible, and Joe and everybody at the NYMBA, again, everybody working together to make this possible. So thank you all for allowing me to be here today, and I'm very excited to present to all of you seizing opportunity in a challenging housing market. And let's face it, it is challenging, and it's continuing to be challenging. And we don't really know when this storm's going to end. So what we have to do is we have to find a way to seize opportunity, to take advantage of it, which is really what this program is all about. So the first thing that I'll ask, though, is I know a few of you already have your chat box open. So I'm just going to ask you, if you don't have your chat box open, please open it, because we are going to be engaging through the chat box, not just for questions that you're going to ask me, but I'm going to be asking you questions. So with that, let's jump right in. And again, thank you all for being here. You appreciate that we can all get together and spend this time. So just starting out with, in times of great uncertainty, there's always tremendous opportunity. And you're going to hear me say a number of things, or repeat the same thing a number of times, actually, where there's opportunity because the majority of people in our business, and it's really the majority of human beings, behave in somewhat predictable manners. And when you understand these patterns, which I'll go deeper into in the program, but when you understand these patterns, there's really tremendous opportunity that you can take advantage of. The problem is, or the first pattern that is that when there's a lot of negativity, when there's a lot of pressure, when there's a lot of uncertainty, we live in a very negative world to begin with. I mean, I don't have to tell anybody that. We know the media and social media and everything else is about 98 or 97% negative and 3%, if we're lucky, positive. So it becomes very easy for people to default to this negative mindset. And when we get into that mindset, we are always going to be less creative, less motivated, less productive. So seizing opportunity is about taking advantage of what most people won't do. So industry, what is the industry uncertainty and pressure? You know, let's do a quick recap, not to make it a negative program, but let's make it real. One, the NAR settlement. So we all know about the NAR settlement. And what's interesting is I was reading an article this morning that although we believe the NAR settlement is taken care of, there are a couple of little monkey wrenches that might be coming that nobody really seems to know about. And one of them is that, first of all, this has to be certified. Second of all, the majority of real estate professionals, it appears, are not really prepared to pivot to do what is necessary to abide by this settlement. Again, we are on the mortgage side, but what they do is going to impact us. We know that. This is the wild card. This is the wild card. This is what I read this morning. And it had to do with, this is not, all over the place. I forgot which publication. It's an industry publication. I forgot which one it was I was reading this morning because I kind of read them all. And what they were talking about is ever since the NAR settlement, or even before the NAR settlement, the Department of Justice had been fighting to get back into this whole commission situation. And in 2020, under the Trump administration, there was a settlement that was done between the administration and the DOJ that they were going to leave everything alone and that whatever adjustments had been made. They then sued to be allowed back in, and only a few months ago, in a 2-to-1 vote in I think it was the Circuit Court of Appeals, they were granted the right to get back into this whole investigation, this whole lawsuit, this whole everything. And I come from a place, I'm a very optimistic individual, and I'm very optimistic and confident that the DOJ is going to get involved because they wouldn't have fought so hard if they weren't going to get involved. But what does that really mean? I don't know. Nobody knows. But they did fire a shot across the bow a couple of weeks ago. And there's a court case, which I'm not very familiar with, but there's a court case going on regarding commission lawsuits in which the DOJ is involved, and it's in the state of Massachusetts. And the DOJ has said nothing. They've said nothing since the NAR settlement. And one of the DOJ attorneys said that, didn't make any rules, just said the real estate community is going to have to be really careful in how they are posting any information regarding compensation, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but right after the settlement came out, the NAR president, it's on video, I don't know if it's still up, but the NAR president said, we are not allowed to put cooperative compensation on the MLS. But it doesn't mean that it can't be put anyplace else. And the exact words he said were, and agents are resourceful, they'll figure out a way. So kind of made it really easy that, okay, MLS isn't going to have cooperative compensation, but it can appear elsewhere. Well, the attorney for the DOJ made a comment that from our perspective, I'm paraphrasing, but from our perspective, the DOJ's perspective, compensation should not be listed anywhere, and that we are going to be looking. So that kind of goes against what NAR believed a month ago when the settlement was done, because the DOJ is saying we don't want to see it anywhere. Now, the next thing that cropped up, and is already cropping up already, is that MLSs are now adding a place for sellers concessions. So the whole idea is, well, now we're going to add sellers concessions for sellers, code it that way, which is going to be for potentially buyers, brokers, compensation. Well, or not for buyers, broker, to reduce how much a buyer is going to pay a broker So look, we're just moving money. We all get that. Well, the next comment from the attorney was, well, if it looks like what's the expression? It looks like a duck, walks like a duck, whatever it is a duck. So basically the DOJ said, we're looking, and we're looking very closely. That's all they have said. Those are the only comments that anybody from the DOJ has made since the settlement that I know of. So what does that mean? Do we really know what's going to happen when this goes into effect in August 17th? So you're probably sitting there saying, Ron, okay, if you're really trying to inspire me here, it's not working. I know what I'm saying. It's my job to make you aware of what's going on, because if you understand what's going on, then you know how to seize opportunity, which is where we're going to talk about. Mortgage rates, I don't have to tell you. We're starting to see some cracks. We had some news this morning about employment, that it's softening, and bond market's responding a little bit positively. We've gotten back everything we lost last week. Joe and I were talking before the program started that rates, the last few times, 3 or 4 times that we've gotten down to this place in rates, we ended up losing it a week or two later. I am hoping, it's the same as you, that we're not losing it anymore. We are seeing more weaker economic data. So the likelihood of this sticking, seems to be a little bit higher this time. Fingers, toes crossed that we're going to continue on this path. And then we have the CFPB, our good friends at the CFPB. And they're now, they are in the process of looking at junk fees that mortgage lenders charge. And they're in the process of not getting opinions on, or getting feedback, whatever it is, whatever they call it. It's not an investigation yet, but they're getting feedback on mortgage junk fees, and they're asking for the public and the industry to respond regarding this. But they've already indicated that they are looking at junk fees the same way they've done with credit cards and banking, and that they're looking to also apply that to the mortgage industry, which invariably, we know that if it goes from one place, it's going to end up someplace else. It always does. But we have all of these things, and this creates incredible industry uncertainty and pressure. And the more of this that comes out, the more people get stressed. And the more people get stressed, the more opportunity is created for those of us that will say, here's what's happening. What do I need to do? Which is really what we're going to talk about today. So the keys to seizing opportunity start with the questions that you ask, the questions you ask yourself, the questions you ask others. A lot of people are not aware of this. They're aware that we live in a very negative world. But a lot of people don't pay attention to the questions or the conversations that they have in their own head. And when you really start looking at most of the questions and conversations that the average person has, they're far more negative than they are positive. And I would ask you, my first challenge to you would be, start paying attention to your self-talk. Start paying attention to the conversations you have with others and see, is it negative or if it's positive? And that immediate awareness becomes the first place for you to start changing things. Now, again, that's 30,000 foot. It's just a little tip that can give you an advantage when you're thinking differently than most. Okay? The key to seizing opportunity though is right here. It's taking action. And there are 4 steps that we're going to go through in this program. The 4 steps are, and I call it the 4 steps to growth in a challenging market. 1, how do you control your state of mind when there's so much negativity going on? 2, pattern recognition, which we're going to spend a good amount of time on this, because one of the most powerful tools you can have is the ability to recognize the patterns of behavior of others. Because when you can recognize, here's what's happening, here's the pattern, how you can get, if you really pay attention, how you get yourself in between. And when you get yourself in between, you're seizing tremendous opportunity. Now, there is no silver bullet. Okay, we all know that. There is no silver bullet. There's nothing that I'm going to say to you that is going to be, hey, I just do this and all of a sudden the magic happens. I wish I had that kind of power. It was interesting. I was doing a coaching call not too long ago with a former loan officer client. And she was in the business about 2 years. And I was coaching with her, and her business was growing. And then one day on a coaching call, she said to me, she goes, I'm holding her accountable. And she said, yeah, so I have a meeting with a realtor and we're going to be brainstorming. I said, now, please understand, I've been giving her strategies and actions on how she can grow her business and how she can help agents and a whole bunch of these things. So she goes, we're going to be brainstorming. And I go, really? I go, what are you going to be brainstorming on? She goes, on a way to find, help the realtor, get more listings, get more people to want to list their home for sale. So I said to her, and we were on Zoom, and I said to her, I said, how long has this realtor been in business? She goes, about a year. I said, okay. And I said, forgive me for saying this, but my job is to call it like I see it. And I said, with you having 2 years of experience in the business and the realtor having 1 year of experience, do you think that the two of you are going to sit down, come up with an idea beyond all the ideas I've given you that is all of a sudden going to make a seller want to list that wasn't wanting to sell their house when they have a 2.5 or 3% rate and rates are 6.5 or 7%? I go, do you think you're going to come up with some magic words that you're going to create that would motivate a seller to say, oh, you know what? I really should sell my house. Okay. Now, by the way, I'm a fellow New Yorker. I live downstate. I live in Westchester County. So sarcasm is included in my training program. And she looked at me and she goes, I guess not. And I said, it's not because you're not intelligent. This is not where you should be focusing on. You should be focusing on how do you get more of the people who are looking to buy right now to know that you are a mortgage professional? How do you get more agents that are active in the business to know that they develop a relationship with you? And that's what we had been working on. But what she was looking for is she was looking for this silver bullet idea. And look, if they can come up with it, hey, I want to know about it. But we all know what we're dealing with here. And we've got a lot of veterans on this program. And when I say veterans, possibly military, but veterans in the industry. And we know what the reality is. But here's the funny thing. Even after that coaching call, I took a step back and I said, well, there's a pattern here. Because she's not alone in her thinking. Now, she may be the one talking about brainstorming with an agent, but the pattern is that most salespeople, most originators are unwilling to put forth the effort that this business today requires. So I'm going to just pause for a second. I want to jump to the chat box and I want to ask you if what I've said so far in these first 10 minutes of this program, or 12 minutes, is making sense. I haven't given you solutions. I just want to know if I'm making sense. Just give me a simple yes or no in the chat box. Okay. Cool. All right. So I'm starting to get the answers through. Thank you. Also, make sure it helps me know that you guys are listening, which is great. Number 3, we're going to talk about where your opportunities are. And then number 4, your role as an originator or as a leader is to be a guide. Okay. And to be a guide, that's where you are a force to lead people, be it agents, be it your sales team, if you are a leader or a sales manager. And if you are an originator, leading yourself to guide others to help them grow their business. So this is all going to make sense. So this is what we're going to cover now in this program. So the first thing we got to do is, if your mindset is not in the right place, you've got nothing. Here's the thing. Again, I'm going to talk about patterns. This is another pattern. Many originators, in order to feel good about their business, they need something good to happen. Instead of, and please understand, I am not in any way, shape, or form dismissing the challenges. I'm well aware of the challenges because the originator challenges become my challenges. Okay, if originations are down, my clientele has pressure, and of course that's going to create pressure on my business. So I'm not here living in a vacuum by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, I have competition in my business. You have competition in yours. But we have to ask ourselves, what questions do we consistently ask ourselves? And are they negative questions or are they positive questions? questions that I constantly ask myself, which is why I keep innovating in my business, why I keep coming up with new topics, new ideas, new strategies. Do they all work? I wish they did, but they don't. Some work, some don't. But and nothing works the way it used to. I was having this conversation the other day. I was talking about saying that there with my team, I was talking about that, we used to do this and we'd get this result. Now we get about 10% of the result. And I had been getting frustrated with that. And then all of a sudden I realized I had to control my mind. And I said, wait a second, I just have to reset my expectations that the same advice that there's no silver bullet for anybody else, there's no silver bullet for me either. And so I just said, we have to just do more. Okay. And this has been going on for over a year now, almost 2 years now. We have to do more than we ever did and accept the fact that the response that we're going to get, the reward that we're going to get is not going to be the same as it was before. The numbers just simply aren't there. Critical mass of originators aren't there. In origination side, the critical mass of borrowers aren't there. Critical mass of realtors. People say, yeah, NAR said they've only lost 50,000 realtors. Maybe they only lost 50,000 realtors from membership, but we're also not at the renewal time yet. Okay, so we'll see what happens next year. And just because somebody is still a NAR member doesn't mean that they're still being active. Okay, I have a real estate office right around the corner of my house. And I can tell you this, there are nowhere near as many cars there as there used to be. And I'm not talking about because people are working virtually. I'm talking about when people were working virtually, I see this office every day that I go to the gym, every single day. Okay, I really can't go most places from my house without going past this office. And the car count has been down for months because they may be realtors, but it doesn't mean that they're working. Okay, so we've got to understand what are the questions. So the questions that we have to consistently ask are, where's the opportunity? What is one more thing that I can do that I'm not doing right now? And we have to question, what is it that we focus on? And if you're a leader, by the way, let me ask this in the chat box, just give a thumbs up or a yes or whatever. Just letting me know, how many of you in the audience manage other originators or manage a team? Just trying to get a feel for leadership versus originators. Okay, my chat box not moving, so I don't know if it's a delay. Okay, no getting bumped, not a bunch. Okay, so we're getting a lot of no's so far. Okay, I got one, John, thank you. Okay, and all right, I've only gotten 4 answers. So it seems like we might have more origination than we do leadership. So my challenge to you would be is to pay attention to what you're focusing on. What questions are you asking yourself? Okay. What conversations are you having? And I'm not talking about with borrowers. I'm talking about if you're working with referral partners. What conversations are you talking about with them? How are those conversations? Are they positive? Are they negative? Okay. When you're getting together with friends or whoever it is, are they positive? Are they negative? This may sound very, very simplistic. Okay. And you might say, oh, Ron, this is all pie in the sky. This really isn't, a big deal. It's a very big deal because you cannot perform at your best without your mind being in the right place. And one of the patterns is that most people are coming to their business every single day. And you've got to understand, there's a lot of people who are angry. There are a lot of people in our business who are frustrated. They're upset. They feel what's happening is not fair. Of course, nobody said this during COVID, right? When we were basically couldn't keep up with all the volume. But now all of a sudden the pendulum has completely shifted and our mindsets tend to struggle with this because we don't want to feel like we're starting over. So your first action is I challenge you to start focusing on the questions you ask, the thought process you have, the conversations you have. And if you're really honest with yourself, some of you, you're going to be positive. I know that. But I know many of you, I've just been doing this long enough to know, many of you, the conversations you're having, you're going to catch yourself and realize, you know what? This is not what I need to be talking about. I need to be talking over here. I need to be focusing on that. That's number one. Number two, pattern recognition. This is huge. Okay. So when I'm gonna give you a pop quiz in the chat box. Okay. So the first question of the pop quiz is this: when an originator goes out and they don't really have the skills to develop relationships, referral partner relationships, or they don't really have the best skills to compete when a borrower says, "What's your rate?" Okay. And these are two areas. This is my area of expertise. And these are two areas that many originators lack the skills. They haven't needed them, not at a great level. When average and typical originators go out and they meet with a realtor and they hear, "I have an existing relationship, I have an in-house lender, I only do listings, the business is slow." Do you think the majority of originators really know how to combat any of those challenges? Just give me a simple yes or no. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of no's. Okay. Okay. Now Michelle said yes. Now Michelle, I'm gonna believe that you're answering for yourself, because I can tell you the majority do not know what to do. How do I know this? When I do trainings, and I do a lot of virtual trainings, I do a lot of in-person, well, not so many in-person these days. I'm doing a lot of virtual, and some of them it's like a webinar, which is this, where I don't see you. And then there are trainings that I do that actually just to the left of my camera, or my left, that's where I'm seeing the chat box. And just to the left of that, when I do a meeting, I see everybody on screen. So I can see facial expressions. It's a live interactive training program. And one of the things that I start off with is a question. And the question I say is, "I'm a realtor, you're a loan officer. Why should I do business with you?" And I'll call on different people. First of all, I'll ask for volunteers, and nobody ever wants to volunteer, so I have to call on somebody. So I say, "Why should I do business with you?" And these are the answers I get. Because I give good service, because I'm going to make myself available, because we're competitive, because we're going to close on time. Now, I know that these four things that I just gave you sound familiar. But here's my question. Have you ever heard a realtor say, "I'm not going to communicate"? I mean, a loan officer say, "I'm not going to communicate"? No. Have you ever said that we're going to make sure you don't close on time? No. Are we going to say that? Have you ever heard a loan officer say, "We're going to make sure the process is as miserable as we can possibly make it for everybody"? No. I know I'm being sarcastic, but what I'm saying to you is, if everybody is saying we're going to give good service, it doesn't mean a whole lot anymore. Service is expected. Service is the job. Now, although this is not a sales training program per se, it's more of a mindset program. What I want to give you is this right here, which falls right into patterns. Most originators are out there and their mindset is, "How do I get business? How do I get business? How do I get business?" And they're staring 5 inches or 6 inches from the front of their face. That's all they can see. The secret to building great relationships, whether it's realtors, attorneys, accountants, financial planners, whatever it is to do one of two things. And this is the genesis, this is the basis for building a compelling conversation to get noticed by referral partners and to engage with them. And that is either solve a problem for them or create opportunity. It's one of those two. Either solve a problem or create opportunity. One of those two things gets you noticed. Now, I know right now, because I read minds, well, we know what the problem is, that there's no inventory, okay, or that rates are high and people don't qualify. And I know that as well. But sometimes solving a problem is just giving an idea, okay? Where are there ideas that you could do on social media? Like, here's a simple one, okay? Now, I'm not getting into what your company social media policies or whatever, okay? But just a simple example on social media. If you're on social media, if I was back originating, I mean, I do this in my business, but if I was back originating, I would start interviewing realtors. Well, why would I start interviewing realtors? Well, if I start interviewing realtors and different realtors, first of all, What am I doing? The purpose of the realtor is I'm going to talk to them about the purpose of the interview is one topic. So, and I'm going to let them know I speak with multiple realtors. I interview realtors every 2 weeks, every week, every month, whatever it is, whatever frequency you want to do. And you can interview them right on Zoom. You don't need any fancy equipment. And you do an interview on a specific topic. Well, the great thing about it is when you do the interview, you're going to be able to send that out to your social media feed. So you're giving the realtor exposure. So are you helping them with their business? The answer is yes. If I give the realtor the copy of the video, which of course I'm going to do, guess what they're going to do? They're going to put it out on their social media feed, and I get a free ride and exposure on their social media the same way they're going to get it on mine. So we're both building our networks in a mutually beneficial way. So again, I'm giving you very simple strategies. There's many, many strategies on how to help. But most loan officers don't talk like this. So if I wanted, let's say, and I'm just picking a name, I see Scott on my, as a name. So Scott, you're a realtor right now. Okay. You're on my chat. You're the last name on my chat box. You're a realtor. Congratulations. I just promoted you. So you're now a realtor. So I figure Scott's going to write back. Are you really sure that's a promotion, Ron? So I reach out, hi, Scott. My name is Ron Bainberg. I'm with ABC Mortgage. The reason for my call is I wanted to ask you is, would you be open to possibly be participating in an interview with me? And Scott's going to say, well, yeah, or what kind of interview, or what have you? You just wrote back, sure. Okay. Well, Scott, this is what I do. So now, and then I say, Scott, so this is what I do. This is why I interview agents, and this is the benefit that you would receive from it. And there's no cost to this. And I'm creating a perception of value because I'm the only one calling them up to interview them. Everybody interviews the top producers. You can make a lot of money on average and middle producers. And a lot of people aren't even interviewing the top producers either. So that's one simple way. What about another thing? Let's say you notice that a realtor has a listing or they're doing an open house. So I reach out to, I'm going to call it a different name. I'm throwing you ideas because I want you to understand possibility. So I see Michelle. Okay. So I see Michelle has a listing or what have you. So I say, hi, Michelle. My name is Ron Bainberg. I'm with ABC Mortgage. And I noticed that you have an open house coming up on Saturday. Even if you have an existing lender relationship, do you have a loan officer that's working with you on that open house? And Michelle may very well say, well, no. Okay. And even if she says yes, I'll say, great. Well, I don't want to interfere with your existing relationship, but I was just wondering, does your existing loan officer, and please, I don't want to know who it is, do they help you get more exposure, not only for your listings, but also for your business? And Michelle's probably going to say, well, what do you mean? And now I have two ways of doing that. One, I could now talk to Michelle about doing an interview, or I could say, Michelle, when I come to your open house, I would love to do a live broadcast to my whole social media network. By the way, I'm just giving you one simple example of social media. There are many other ways that don't involve social media. Okay. But so I picked up my phone, and what I'm going to do at the open house is, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab my phone. I'm going to do a live broadcast on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever you want. I don't care. And I'm going to say, hey, everyone, it's Ron Bainberg here from ABC Mortgage. I am here with Michelle Noble from ABC Realty. We're here at 123 Smith Street at an open house. Michelle, what could you tell everybody about this house? Oh, Ron, it's a beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bath, whatever. We're going to be here till 3 o'clock, whatever. Well, Michelle, if somebody, thanks for all that. Michelle, if somebody can't make it, how would they get a hold of you to find out what other houses you might have for sale? I just did a commercial for Michelle, and I got it out to her. And by the way, I can then hand her that or not hand it, tag her, and it now goes on hers. I'm giving you a very, very simple, narrow focus just on social media because it was so easy for me to explain. There are a lot more concepts that are not complex. They just take a little bit longer to explain, and we don't have that kind of time. But what I want you to do is, I'm solving a problem. Would you agree with me? Okay. Get out of your own head and just look at the patterns of originators. Would you agree with me that most originators don't think like this? Simple yes or no in the chat box. Would you agree with me that most originators do not think this way? Okay. So I'm getting a lot of yeses, which means there's opportunity for you. Okay. There's opportunity for you. So origination patterns, what are agent patterns? Okay. Agent patterns are negativity, uncertainty. Okay. We're finding a bigger divide between top producers and the rest of the group because top producers have zero fear or very little fear of these changes because all they just say in their head is, hey, I'm going to adapt to whatever is going to happen. But then we have the masses. I don't know what this is going to be. I don't know what I'm going to do. We already have agents that have quit the industry out of fear for this. Do you know that when there was comp reform in 2010 for the mortgage industry, originators quit before even comp reform had been released? I had a client back then. He was all set to leave the business. His name was Bill. He goes, Ron, I just got to get out of here. I go, why? I go, because I won't be able to make any money. I go, where'd you get that idea? He goes, oh, it's just all the things I'm hearing. I go, Bill, let me explain to you exactly what's happening. And I explained to him what new comp reform was. And he goes, really? That's it? And this is a very, very intelligent guy. He goes, really? That's it? I go, well, that's all it is. And that's all it was, whatever, the comp reform is. He goes, oh, I can live with that. I go, I know you can live with that. I'm glad we had this conversation before you quit the business. But there are realtors doing this already. They're doing this already. It's one of the reasons why I do this buyers brokers masterclass. I'm teaching agents how to be buyers brokers to represent and get paid for their services to create that value. Most of them have never had to study that. And you know what's amazing is another pattern. Most of them are not willing to study it. Here's something you can write down. To succeed at the highest possible level, or to take advantage of a market, you have to be willing to do what others are not willing to do. What others are not willing to do, what others don't know how to do, and what others are unwilling to learn how to do. Those three things create massive advantage. And if you really want to tie that into pattern, just ask yourself, what is it that most loan officers are unwilling to do? Well, prospecting is one of them, and because many of them are ill prepared to do it. Two, a lot of people after they graduate school don't really enjoy learning. They only really put effort into learning hobbies. It's why I think the number is over like 90% of people that buy after they graduate college and never read a book past the first chapter for the rest of their life. Some crazy statistic like that. But people are passionate about their hobbies. They're passionate about their binge watching and what's happening on Real Housewives or Yellowstone or whatever. I'm not a binge watcher, so I couldn't tell you. And that's fine. But none of those are going to help you in a time of challenge for your business. So maybe I tell people one less episode and put that time over here, and very few people will do it. So these are all patterns that allow you to gain a competitive advantage. Number 3, unique messaging. I've already started to give this to you. When I gave you the example a few minutes ago about when I called up, I think it was Michelle as the realtor, and was asking about an open house. Here's the thing. A pattern of behavior of most LOs, most salespeople, is they show up and grow up, right? We've all heard that expression. Okay. If we had more time, I'd have you write it in the chat box. But they just show up and they start talking and they say, we've got this product. We've got this. One of the keys to creating a unique message is you don't tell people what you have until you first get them to buy into a solution. Let me give you a very simple example. Okay, a very simple example. I already gave you one when I was doing the thing with Michelle, but here's another one. So whether you have this program or not, please don't get caught up whether you have the program or not. I'm just going to make it really simple. So let's say you have a 100% financing program. Okay. First of all, if you have a 100% financing program, do you think you're the only one that has it? The answer is no. I'm not getting into the nitty gritty of the rules or regs or income limit. None of that applies here right now because I would just want you to understand the concept. So I have 100% financing. First thing I do in my head is I say, well, what problem does that solve? Well, obviously it solves a problem with people that don't have enough money for down payment. So what do most LOs do? Again, pattern. What they're going to do is they're going to talk to a realtor and say, we've got 100% financing. We've got this, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. Okay. And I know some of you are guilty of it. You don't have to own up to it in the chat box, but I know some of us are guilty of doing this. Well, the first thing that I would do if I go back to my realtor, Michelle, in this scenario, I'd say, Michelle, with home prices inflated and interest rates still higher than we'd like them to be, have you run into any situations where you have buyers that don't have enough money for down payment? What are the odds on Michelle saying yes to that? I would think it'd be pretty high. In fact, Michelle, I was hoping you would answer, just and pretending to be a realtor, the answer is going to be a yes. The only realtor that's going to say no is a realtor that doesn't have any business or never has done any business. So I'm saying, do you ever have someone that Michelle, the reason why I ask is because one of the areas that I specialize in is working with buyers that have little to no money for down payment. And the realtors that I work with absolutely love the magic I'm able to put together on transactions. See, I haven't told Michelle about 100% financing. What I've gotten her excited about is the solution. Does this make sense? Yes or no? In the chat box. So here's the rule moving forward. Never tell someone what you can do until you first identify a solution that they want. And that you do through asking great questions. Okay? If I was talking to Lisa about an open house, what I'd say to Lisa, have you ever worked with a loan officer that helps you get exposure to the neighbors when you do the open house, where we actually get the neighbors to want to talk to you versus coming in stealth mode? And she's gonna be like, what do you mean? I'll say, well, normally when you do an open house, do you ever have nosy neighbors come and they really don't want to talk? They just want to kind of go through the house? And Lisa's going to say, yeah. I'll say, well, what if I could show you a way that together we could get them that when they come to the house, they want to talk to you. And now you might potentially get a listing down the road, and you're certainly going to build your database for future buyers or future sellers. Lisa, would that be a benefit to you, especially in a market like today? And hopefully Lisa say, yeah, that would be great. Now, if Lisa says, no, I just need a deal now, well, then Lisa's kind of revealing to me what her emotional state is right now. And I don't know that I'm going to get her to flip. Okay? Because the desperation is not going to make for a good relationship between the two of us, because desperation in our business rarely works. What's the concept? The concept I'm talking about is what's called a neighbors only open house. It's a simple concept. It's where you invite neighbors over to the open house during a certain allotted time, not during the regular open house, during a certain allotted time. You invite neighbors over because now that they're invited over, guess what? They don't come in stealth mode. They come in because they know that they're invited. They know they're welcome, and they're going to talk to you as the loan officer, and they're going to talk to the realtor. It's just a simple way of breaking down a barrier that we know exists. But if I'm working with Lisa and I explain this to her and I give a unique message that identifies the problem first, then when she says, I want that solution, now we have something more to talk about. And the pattern of originators, and again, I've been teaching, it's my 39th year in and around the business. And this is my 27th year of training and coaching. And my specialty is agents, loan officers, leaders, mortgage industry, and account executives for wholesale. Those are the wholesale or MI. Those are my 4 buckets that I've been focusing on my entire training career. And I'm never far away from what you're dealing with every day. These are strategies that are proven to work in the past, in the present, and in the future. I actually had someone today. I have a webinar coming up on Thursday. It's called Mastering Agent Influence. And I had somebody write back. He goes, Ron, I love your material, but he goes, if you're telling people to develop relationships with agents, you're basically telling them to move deck chairs on the Titanic. And I wrote back, I go, I appreciate what you're saying, but I go, when 86% of all business goes through real estate agents and they're not going away, and I've been around long enough to hear how many times realtors were no longer going to be needed, I will disagree with what you said. I guess we're going to find out after August 17th now, aren't we? Okay. Realtors are not going anywhere. And I know that. I can't say I know it for a fact. I know it with a high degree of certainty. Do you want me to tell you why I know with a high degree of certainty? Just let me know in the chat box. Otherwise, I'll keep going. Wait for one. I need one yes. So I can just talk to that one person. If you want to know with a high degree of certainty. Okay, so Lisa wrote yes. So Lisa, I'm only talking to you because nobody else has responded. Because there's a very simple pattern. Okay, Scott, you're getting it too. There's a very simple pattern. The more emotional a buying decision is, regardless of product or service, the more emotional a buying decision is, the more human interaction is needed. Plain and simple. The internet, when it first came out, we thought it made people more intelligent. Now the internet creates confusion. Look up anything and you will find conflicting information on virtually anything. Man, you could look, you could look up, oh, my forearm hurts. Okay. Oh, you might have lymphoma or a broken, whatever, or you have muscles that are deteriorating. I mean, you're going to find all sorts of diseases. No, my forearm is really sore because I haven't played golf in 2 years, and I actually played 2 days in a row, and I've used muscles that I haven't used for 2 years. So for 2 days, my forearm's hurting, and I knew why. Okay, so my point is, the more emotional, and buying a home is very emotional, the more they're going to need a guide. The more people are going to need help. So we've got to learn how to create value, which is what I've been showing, which is what I've been sharing with you, just giving you ideas here on how to create value. And you've got to be consistent. Another pattern, originators are not consistent with their relationship development, with their prospecting, whatever that looks like. Whether it's calling leads, they're not consistent. Whether it's reaching out to develop referral partner relationships, they're not consistent. We see this over and over and over again. They get a few deals, they start working the deals, and then they stop prospecting. Then all of a sudden the deals will start closing out. I need business. Now you go start prospecting, and it's just on, off, on, off, on, off. And I'd rather you be consistent for an hour a day than do 4 hours this week one day and then do nothing else for prospecting that week. Because consistency is what builds your business. And if you look at every top producer, and I work with a number of them, every top producer, the one thing that I can tell you, I mean, there's more than one thing, but one thing that goes through all of them is that they built their business being consistent in their prospecting. That's how they built it. Okay. Anybody can build it when rates go down. Anybody can write loans. Anybody can make money. I'm not dismissive of that. During COVID, you guys worked your what's off. But you didn't have to be good. And it's not an insult. You didn't have to be good. You had to answer your phone and you had to work a lot of hours. Okay. But you didn't have to be a good prospector. Today, we have to be great prospectors if we really want to gain that competitive advantage. And the majority are not willing to put in the effort. They're not willing to do what they know they should do. They're not willing to learn what they should do. And if you don't do those things, then you're going to stay right where you are. Wherever that, and if you're in a good place where you are, then that's okay. But I don't think you'd be on this webinar. And I'm not saying you're in a bad place. I'm not saying you're like, you're miserable. You're here because you wanted to grow. You wanted to seize opportunity. But as you can see, I told you, there's no silver bullet, and there is no silver bullet. There is, COVID was a silver bullet for many people. And most of those people that came into the business during COVID, where are they today? Not in the industry, that's for sure. Yet there are still a number of people in this industry, not the masses, but a number of people in this industry that are still making great money. Not what they were making before, but they're still making great money. And it's because of that consistency. And then number 4, you've got to be the guide. You've got to be the guide. What are the pain points? What are the pain points for prospects? Okay. Be the guide. So when you start thinking about pain points, it changes your conversation. So let me give you this example. Let's talk about prospects. So I'm going to ask you this question. Okay. The question I'm going to ask you is, have you ever had a first-time buyer and they told you that, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, so I need you in the chat box. Have you ever had a first-time buyer and they told you that they don't understand the process, they're confused, and that they're nervous? Simple yes or no. Okay, so I'm getting a bunch of yeses. Have you ever, this same first-time buyer, when they were told you they were confused and didn't understand the process, did you take the time to explain to them the buying process before they committed to doing business with you? Yes or no? Don't ever do that again. I'm slapping your hand. Don't ever do that again. Why? Because the value of your service goes down after you've given them all the information. It's like that borrower that you fully educate. Oh, Mr. Borrower, we're going to do 3% down with an FHA with a 6% seller's concession, blah, 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 blah. And the next thing you know, they say, okay, Ron, I really appreciate your help. And then start calling up lenders. Can you do FHA? Yes. Can you do seller's concessions? Yes. And you just educated them to go someplace else. Here's the thing. Explaining someone the home buying process that you and I understand very clearly, because we've lived it in the mortgage industry. Whether you own a house or not, you know the home buying process and the mortgage process. And do you really think you can make it clear that someone's going to remember all of that in about 15 minutes? The answer is no way. So if you were to say to me, so if Brian were to say to me, Ron, me and my spouse, we are, we're first-time buyers, we're very nervous, we're confused by this whole thing. Brian, I'm so glad you shared that with me. I promise you, as we go through this process, I'm going to be your guide. I'm going to take you through each step. I'm going to make sure you understand each step, that you're comfortable with each step, and that we get rid of any stress that you have, because we have to make this a pleasurable experience. That makes sense? And Brian's going to say, absolutely. He's not going to say, no, I want more stress. He's not going to say, no, make it harder for me. And I never had anybody say, no, I want the whole process right now. See, what we do is we focus on the symptoms that they have, which is stress, frustration, anxiety, not understanding. What I focus on is if they're experiencing all of those emotions, what are they looking for? And the truth of the matter is most of us think they're looking for information, and they're not. They're looking for the guide. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Cool. And the same thing with realtors, referral partners. Okay. And realtors are going to be that right now, 86% of all transactions go through realtors. So I do believe in those relationships. And are you going to have to go through a lot more people now who may not be here after, at the end of the year? It's possible. It's highly likely. But you know what? You're going to see some of your competition fall away too, because they're not willing to prospect enough to kiss, and I'll use the expression, to kiss more frogs, find the prince or the princess. They're just not willing to do it. And that's a pattern. So referral partners, you've got to be the guide. Ask them, what are your concerns? What are your frustrations? Ask them a question, how do you feel about what's going on with NAR? What if I show you ways that I can help you to take advantage? And you actually take some of this and bring it to them. You're going to have conversations with realtors that you're the guide and they're going to want to do business with you. I don't want you to think yourself as a loan officer. You're the guide. And the only way you get to guide people is if they engage with you. And if they engage with you, then you're going to win their referrals. You're going to win their business. Okay. And then you can teach them also how to become better at referring business. There are a lot of agents that would gladly refer you. They just don't know how to do it. I'll leave you with this. Okay. First, let me ask you this question. Okay. The question I want to ask you is, you've stayed on for this much of the program, so it's made sense. Write down one of 3 action items. I want you to write down 3 for yourself, but write down one action item you're committed to taking from today's program. Throw it in the chat box. I want to see what your takeaway from it was. Your number one takeaway, hopefully not your only takeaway. This is where I get to play this. Yeah. Asking more questions, unique messaging. And those are usually the two top things that come from this. Ladies and gentlemen, this takes practice, this takes time, it takes effort to learn. But I can tell you this, it's going to create an incredible competitive advantage for you if you do this. So with that, what I want to do is, and I can stay on an extra few minutes if we have it, Joe, to answer questions, because I did kind of use up all the time. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring Joe back on. So, Joe, I have you back on. I know you can still hear me. So I'll let you close it out. And then if we, I haven't seen any questions in the chat box, but if people want to ask questions, we can get those answered as well.
Excellent. And you can hear me now, right, Ron?
Yes. Yep.
Great. Yeah, I've been watching the chat box as well. I don't see anything new in there, but I loved a couple things, right? I really appreciate you going in and spending a little bit of time on NAR because you're right. That is a dynamic that, people heard this is what's happening or what's going to happen, but you're right. It's been announced, but there's still not the finality to it. But it's a game changer for the residential mortgage industry. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So appreciate that. And I also appreciate, the graphic that you showed there with consistency, right? And how that arrow only moves up, right? If you continue to just do what you do day in and day out, as boring as it may seem some days, like you said, don't lump it into one day, don't make 4 hours worth of calls one day and then, think you're done. It's consistency is definitely the long-term factor that contributes to a lot of success, I think, of anybody in the industry for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, good.
All right.
All right, so let's wrap it up here. Again, Ron, can't thank you enough again to Casey and Tony and the team over at Essent Guarantee. Really appreciate you guys making sure that we got the right messaging here, and there's still a lot of work to be done out in the streets and making sure that everybody builds those connections with realtors. Again, folks, any of you that are attending, please make sure to reach out, support Casey and the folks at Essent, reach out to Ron, long-term members, long-term presenters of a lot of what we do here at the New York MBA. And we want to continue to support them in their businesses as well. And, Ron certainly has time and certainly would like to work with your companies in the future if you have that need.
Sure.
Good. So we're going to finish up here. As I said back in the beginning of the session, we do post this out in a couple of days. It'll be available to view again as many times as you need to. If you want to invite anybody else in your company to go view it, go to our YouTube page, which is simply, when you go in there, search for New York Mortgage Bankers Association, and you will see this and other sessions that we've had recently come up where you can view them and, go back and share that information with your teams. We also certainly post our information out on LinkedIn as well. So stay in touch with us. Ron, can't thank you enough. Appreciate it. We wish you a great rest of 2024 and keep up your great work. And we'll certainly have you back here in the future. All right.
Joe, thank you so much for having me, Joe. Thank you, Casey. Thank you all for attending. And I look forward to when our paths cross again.